So my camera stopped recording whenever I got the old blocks moved out, which this is my other truck, so I'm just going to show you what I guys did kind of on explanation. So you're going to have the rear end lifted up on with the jack, and have that lifted up, have the tires taken off, so that way you can drop the rear end lower with the truck jacked up even higher. And what you're going to do is you're going to unbolt these 4 bolts on each side of the truck, and then that'll release your U-bolts holding the leaf springs to the blocks. So you'll pull those out, and you'll pull the blocks out once you start lowering the rear end down. So whenever you get that down, you have to watch you don't pull your brake lines off on the other newer style trucks too. So whenever you go to put the new blocks in, there's 2 little dowel pins that are on the bottom of the leaf spring and on the bottom of the block, on the rear end where the block sits on. So you have to make sure that's centered up, and the rear end will want to move on you. So you can either loosen the bolts up on one side and try fighting it, or you can loosen them both up. Make sure that you're not going to lose the rear end anywhere on the jack. So then, once you get the new blocks in place, you just put the new longer leaf spring U-bolts on, and you'll just start the nuts up to get everything centered. Start in on both sides, and then you lift the rear end up, and just lift it up, and then tighten the bolts all the way up to torque specs. Then you redo all the brake lines and e-brake lines you had to take off. And that's pretty much about it for the rear end. And then you can put the tires back on and drop it back on the ground. Alright, so we're going to be doing a 2.5-inch lift on a 2014 to 18, actually it's 19, old body style Silverado. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop the shocks on both sides, just to let the rear end hang down a little bit longer. And we're going to take off the U-bolts on both sides. And we're going to disconnect this emergency brake cable over here just to let the rear end hang down a little bit lower without any interruptions. So I'm going to pause the video and let you guys see from there. Okay, so I already got the old U-bolts and the old blocks out. So I just installed the new block, which the taper side, which I can show you on this one over here. This side's a little bit shorter than this side of the block, so it's going to be going on the front of the block, on the front of the truck like that. So this side's going to be the front, and literally all you do is drop the rear end down and just put them in place of the original ones. That easy. So I'll show you when it's all together. Okay, so now the leaf spring blocks are in, and I can show you on that side that everything's sitting the way it's supposed to be, nice and easy, no big deals. All you got to do now is just jack the rear end up and put the shock bolts back in on this one and over there. And I'll show you what the blocks do to keep the right angle for your geometry for your drive shaft to your rear end. So give me 1 minute and I'll show you. Alright, so what the blocks do on the front of the tapered part of the block is it keeps your pinion angle straight right here. So that way you have no U-joint binding or anything like that, and that way it kind of saves your drive shaft from having to get repaired eventually down the road sooner than later, is what I mean. So I'm going to put the wheels back on and start on the front. Okay, so do the front struts now. What we're going to do is we're going to disconnect this brake line here. We're going to also disconnect it up here just to give us a little bit extra slack. And what we're going to do is take out this tie rod bolt on the bottom, and we can take a hammer, pop that out. And then we got to disconnect the lower strut bolts, the upper strut bolts, and we have to take out the sway bar link. So I'll show you each step in just a minute. Okay, so we're going to disconnect the steering link. Like so. All you need to do is, if I can have my hammer, all you got to do is give it a light. Like that. And then I'll show you the next step. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys how to do the sway bar. So all you got to do, 15 millimeter socket, 15 millimeter wrench, and all you got to do is just get on the nut on the bottom, and if it won't jump off. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, I got that bolt off now. All you got to do now is take off the lower strut bolts, and then we'll loosen up the bolts on the top, which are 18s, and the bottoms are 15s. Then we'll take off the upper control arm ball joint next. So let's go and do that. Okay, so those are out. Now I'm going to grab an 18, and I'm going to go ahead and get the bolts off the top as well, which this is going to be a little bit of a longer process because they're going to be longer bolts. So I'll just come back whenever I get them out. I'll show you guys. Okay, so I got the upper bolts off now, and they are just right there. You can't access them easily on the side without having to go through the topper at all. So now I'm going to get this bolt here that's right on the upper control arm to the knuckle. Get that off. What you're going to do is you're going to take the nut off almost all the way, leave a couple threads on. Then you're going to pound right here with a hammer, and it should just drop right out. So I'll show you guys that in a minute. Okay, time to knock it out of the socket. That, and then all you gotta do is I'll put a jack under here, and that way you can put a little tension on this, keep it from falling all the way down. I'll take the nut all the way off, and I'll pull the strut out, and then I'll show you what you guys do after that. Okay, so now when you get your strut out, make sure you still have it the way you pulled it out from the truck, which is great. For me, this is my side that was facing me. So you're going to take the spacer here, and it's going to literally just slide right into where it needs to be, like that. And then all you got to do is put the supplied nuts on that they give you. Okay, so what they tell you to do is you're going to be reinstalling this after you get your spacer on. Put it in 180 degrees from where it was. And that will give you the offset the right way that this needs to go in. And that should be it. I'll show you guys how to reinstall it. Okay, so I kind of just put everything back together. But all you got to do is tighten. One second. All you gotta do is tighten these 3 bolts here. Well, you want to put everything together loose first. And then the hardest part's going to be getting these 2 bolts in down here. And once you do that, they'll go together pretty damn easily. So that's the 15 millimeters. Then what I did, which in case your axle wants to pop out of its socket on accident from just letting the suspension drop, just you have to kind of wiggle it back into its position, and it'll just go right back in place. But yeah, you want to put your steering link bolt loosely on just to hold the steering up from wanting to go back. And then once you can get this to go back together in here, you'll get a jack under it, or depending on if you're on a lift or not, you'll be lifting the front up, or the lower control arm up, get the bolt started up top and lower, and then make sure you line this bolt back up for the sway bar, back into the sway bar area in the hole, because it'll be a little bit shorter, and it'll just keep fighting to get back in. And then all you got to do next is get the lower control, or the upper control arm, back into the knuckle, and that'll pretty much be about it for getting everything loose. And then you can start tightening everything up as you go. I started with the control arm, went with the steering link, then the sway bar link, and then the strut last. And I just did everything to a quick tighten. So I'm going to do the other side, and I'll show you it after it's done. Okay, so all in all, lift went in really easy. If I wasn't struggling with a couple of tools that messed up on me, I could have had this done in probably the whole truck done in about 2.5 hours total. Back went on the easiest, front simple as all can be. Now I'm just gonna drive it around a little bit, make sure that the suspension settles, and I'll show you a picture of that whenever I get done. So, thanks.